Finger Beauty. Well, we're streaming now anyway, so if everybody is ready, everybody's got their merch, everybody's pimping up free stuff. Cool. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this week's A&DBBL. So this is this week's Roundup. You'll notice that Mr. Chris Coe is once again no longer with us. Wouldn't say he's deserted the ship, but again he's taken the opportunity to leave the kids in charge. So whether you are at this time of the season very satisfactory with how your performance have been, if you are very unsatisfactory how your performance has been, or if you're curled up in the corner sobbing and rocking dreaming of having new dice, this is the place for you to be on a Monday night. I am, as always, it is a privilege and a pleasure to be joined by the one, the only, the Prince of Stowmarket, Mr. Tom Hobble. Good evening, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. How you doing?
Cool. I suspect that you are very excited to be on tonight. How excited were you when ready for tonight after the results, which we will come on to?
Well, I was more relieved than excited yesterday, but yes, it's I can now bask in the glory. But we'll come to that.
Excellent. And if that's not enough for all A&DBBL super coaches out there, we have not one but two exceptional, good-looking, talented individuals. So people who are going to put checks in the post as soon as this broadcast is done. I am absolutely thrilled to be welcoming the coach of the Necro Wonderful team, the Wolverhampton Shamblers. Jane, good evening and welcome.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me on the stream tonight. I'm excited to be here.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure. And if it's not enough to have Jane and the Pride of Necro on tonight, we have him. We've managed to track him down, nail him. We've had some issues with some goblin technicalities. Maybe a few of them have got out into the wires, but it is the stunty coach supreme. It's the coach's coach of the season. It is the wonderful Flamingos head honcho. It's Mr. Scott Norman. Good evening, Mr. Norman. Scott, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. Especially after my league results, but we'll get them when we get there.
Excellent. So we've got three coaches, all probably as excited or relatively excited as if they were on Christmas Eve and they think they've been on Santa's good list. So what are we going to cover for you tonight? We've got 10 matches to cover from this week's fixtures as well. And with the season end around the corner, we're going to be looking at what matches are outstanding, what have we got coming up in the next 7 days that will have an impact on coaches' seasons for the better or maybe not so. We're also going to be looking at who's in the Champions League and who's in the inaugural conference. Where do you want to be? Just a couple of shout outs before we do. A reminder to everybody, one of our core pillars here is supporting ourselves as a community. We obviously are supporting Macmillan Cancer. So if you want to go to the Just Giving link, I'm sure Chris will put it somewhere in the chat links as well. If you can donate, if you can give, every little bit is welcome. And it is a fantastic way to help us, to help other people as well. Love and big shout out to chat before we forget. Hello to Pat and anyone else living outside the UK as well. More than welcome as always as we look to spread the gospel and the love of everything A&DBBL. Reminder about A&D, Aardvarks and Dragons. Get yourself down if you can in store. This is our community. This is the benchmark. This is the rock, the bedrock upon which our Blood Bowl wonderful community is based. So get yourself down there as well. See Mr. Scott Phipps. And don't forget, Death on the Deben 2 tournament tickets are available. So if you want to get your place in the most lucrative, most amazing tournament this side of Woodbridge, get yourself down there, speak to Mr. Phipps, buy a ticket, ask him for a free hug, see what his reaction is going to be. And if you survive, maybe we'll see you on next week's program as well. Also, you've got the NDP Weekly Roundup. If you really do want more idiocy and banality, we're always here to entertain. So without further ado, without further delay, let's go and let's have a look at the matches from last week. So without further, we're going to go first of all, if he says clicking the right thing after tonight's first match, and we're pleased that the coach is here in person. We're going to be looking at this week's match, Norse versus Necromantic. We're going to be looking at Jack and his Agathon Mewers and Jane versus the Wolverhampton Shamblers. So, Jane, going into this, lots to play for. What were your thoughts going into play the Norse? You played them before, 1-1 draw before. What were your expectations going into this one?
Obviously, Jack's at the top of the table for a reason. You don't get that many SPP by not being a great coach. So yeah, we knew it was going to be a tough game. Just went in there hoping to hold my head up high coming out of it. I think a 1-1 result was. I was happy with a 1-1 result. I was hopeful that I got a lot more positionals and quite a lot more skills that I might have been able to push through. But yeah, I mean, just it's tough to go against a team that bashy.
Very much so. So pretty close in terms of the numbers. You obviously got relatively early touchdown on turn 6. What was your strategy, Jane? Were you looking for the 2-1 grind just to at least get your touchdown on the board first half?
I am never looking for a 2-1 grind. It's just not the way. So the very first season I played Blood Bowl, I played Amazons, and I didn't make it out of the into the playoff stage. But at that stage, I had the most completions of anyone by a country mile. I had no idea how to play Blood Bowl. I watched a lot of American football, so I'd just eat the ball. And I lost my way. I found I lost my way a bit with the Necromantic last year. Didn't last season. I wasn't enjoying them quite so much. This year I was determined to come in here and just play for fun. So yeah, it's all about like role playing the characters, the ghouls, the werewolves, the things, just them all just doing their jobs and not worrying about saving the players and making sure everything works properly, just having fun. And so yeah, there was no 2-1 grind. It's opportunity. So the team's bashy or agile, so you can play it as it comes.
Excellent. So have you obviously last year, Jane, were in a bit of what was labelled as the group of death with some very dubious characters and individuals there as well. So were you a bit more confident? You played the team a lot more. So, you'd played Jack before. So was this a question of just go out there, throw those dice and see where the Nuffle landed you?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it went both ways as well. In the middle of the game, my dice got really good, and I think Jack was starting to get quite worried, and I was getting quite excited. But then it all fell apart at the end in much the same way as normal.
And your flesh golem getting a couple of casualties in there.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, he's coming on. He's looking good. I think the one bone of contention that I'm still arguing with Scott at the shop about is me attempting to dodge out my werewolf and pass the ball to a flesh golem on the sideline. Now I'm claiming I couldn't have made that touchdown anyway, and I just wanted to go for glory. It didn't result in anything changing the result, but it was I enjoyed it. That's half the fun. I think that's where I felt I lost my way a little bit, and now I'm just loving playing them again, which is the main thing. Doing crazy stuff.
Excellent. And Tom, from your perspective, you're also in Group Orchiadas, and we know things have progressed between then and now, but just take yourself back to before this match kicked off. Did you have any hopes, dreams, expectations? Were you hoping secretly with fingers crossed that Jack would have been victorious, or were you hoping that Jane would have absolutely smashed Jack to smithereens? What were your thoughts?
Well, it was interesting that Jane said she was scared of being against a bashy team because clearly she was the bashier of the two teams in this match, causing probably more casualties than anyone has done so far in our division against Jack's Norse. Both coaches are formidable and they've got teams that they love and enjoy to play. So I think a 1-1 draw is kind of probably a nice one. I'm just wondering whether there could have been a little bit more for either way. I don't know. Because by the looks of things, Jane, your dice were on fire in the second half by the looks of things, causing casualties and killing a lineman as well.
I got another zombie out of it. Absolutely, they were just on fire. I don't know what was going on there, but they were just rolling like nobody's business. It was very disturbing for Jack. I see like he was getting quite demoralized about it at one point, I think, but just luck. Then it all turned back the other way, and then I did something stupid, which is my forte. Generally do one stupid thing a game, which like just throws it all away. That was Jack just monopolizes any little mistakes you make, and that's it. He's all over it. You can't make mistakes against a coach as good as that. He will take you to the cleaners. Quite rightly so.
Exactly. And so Scott N, you're obviously through, and so is Jack. as well. So would you be looking to play against this Norse team with your goblins, or is it someone to avoid?
So I've only played Norse once or twice. It was JD last season, and they were the funnest of games. But I don't like Valkyries. They're bloody good. So just checking out his leveled up blodging Valkyries. I don't know. I've much. I can hit that with a chainsaw, so I'll give him a good go.
So, of course, thanks for the spoiler alert there, Tom. Always useful as we go on for the results.
If you don't know the results, look away now.
Indeed. We do have... they could have gone to tour play before this, as all sensible Blood Bowl coaches would have done. Jack has commented in there, by the way, Scott, it's pronounced Agarth and viewers. We'll keep calling it Agatha and viewers because that's easy, and I have problems speaking on a good day, Jack, so you'll have to forgive old people as we go down that merry path. Okay. So Jack doing what Jack needed to do, getting ready for the Norse. We'll come and have a look at the teams shortly and have a look at that. So let's just jump in, have a look at how Jack is doing as well. Not looking, too bad there in terms of the skills. Some good ones, a mixture of balance in there in terms of random, sure hands and shadowing on a Valkyrie. Sure hands always pretty good. Shadowing, it's a mixed one. But then he's taking dodge, block in terms of specific choices. Thoughts on that in your group, Jane and Scott? Is that something you've both been aficionados of this season? Or you just decided, if these are the skills I want, this is what I'm going to go with?
Well, I mean, dodge and block together on an agile player just gives them a bit more survivability as well. The Valkyrie is obviously quite valuable. They're over 100,000 for them, and that Valkyrie's got 21 SPP. That's heading towards a stat change, isn't it? Basically, so I mean, dodge and block is just going to protect that thing a little bit better.
Yeah. Looking very good. Oops, just jump out of that. Obviously, he's worked without the All-Werner now. So if we look at his team, he's still got 11 players. Yes, he's down one All-Werner as he goes into the next match as well. Do you think that's going to come back and maybe cause him a few issues, Tom? Or do you think he's got the treasury, he can get rid of someone and get someone else in new as needed?
No, I don't think that's going to upset him much. I know he's got block. He's managed to get block on that particular one, and it's going to miss the next game. But by the looks of things, there hadn't been any other stat busts on it, so maybe I think he can muscle through on the next game, and then he'll have a full set of 12 in the follow-up round. Although by the looks of things, and again going back to this original one, how effective was that Yeti? Because you seem to have kind of dispatched it pretty quickly on turn 8, so it clearly didn't make much of an impact against you, Jane.
I think I've yet to be properly scared by anyone's big guys. I played James Hanley in the first season, and he had a couple of big guys in there, and I didn't know what I was doing. So 2 dice uphill, and because I think I wasn't intimidated. I didn't know enough to be intimidated in the first place. I've kind of realized that you can stay out of their way. Both teams I've played have been quite agile, so if you can stay out of their way a little bit, then and then gang up on them later on, possibly, then you can play against them quite effectively. I think randomly come across a tactic to deal with them.
Jack put in comment, he might first of all, he said his Yeti did cluck all, and apart from getting in the way, that's about Jack not getting maybe a good return on that investment as well, although he did say he might take Ivar Eriksson if he plays a higher value team. Last thing before
I am looking forward to hearing about the big guy at the tournament when I get around to listening to that episode of Next Dice Please, because I think I'm going to get vindicated again that big guys aren't great.
Big guys, it's a very emotional, it's a very volatile subject in the New Dice Please world, Jay. Thank you for bringing that up as well. So this might be a moot point question, but Mr. Scott Norman, when you do get the opportunity, do you like a bit of big boy action or big guy action, or what? Do you throw them small, little, and green?
Yeah, little and green, nice and mean. That's it. I used big guys in my first season with the league, and then they cost me my go. I went from 5 points to 2, cost me a playoff, and I have not picked anything above stunty ever since. So, but I'm biased. So.
And we are more than happy to accommodate anyone in the church of bias, and no apologies needed on this channel, Mr. Norman, as well. So that's the current situation then with the Agathon viewers and young Jack there. So let's go back in terms of having a look at that. Jane will come on to the necro soon. Just conscious of time, we've got quite a few matches next to. So we're then going from Orchiadus. We're going from the 1-1 draw. That really sort of set up the next round of matches. We're now going to go into Ikilia. So this is Harrison and the Buffalo Big Stars. Oh, sorry, I was trying to read. Buffalo Big Uns. Apologies, Harrison. Versus Mr. David Rue, also the Shambling Dead superstar coach, and Dead Star Belgrave. So 1-0 to the Buffalo Big Uns. Interesting, looks, a lot more happening than possibly suggests on tour play as well. Scott, one of your groups, this had big connotations. What were your thoughts on this first match that saw Harrison playing Dave?
Well, going into it, don't want to pick favourites, but I needed David to do me a solid. And he's always beaten me. He's a solid player. And then he goes and loses. And that's not what I needed. I have spoken to Dave. He could not get through the orc armor. It's 10 pluses across the board, and it's just a really, really tight game from what I've heard. But it was very not favourable for me. So I was watching this and not enjoying the scoreline. Harrison's had a real massive turnaround this season from his slow start.
Absolutely. Harrison had a really good turnaround. A couple of defeats to start, and then gradually making his way up the division with several wins. So obviously, should we say in the sporting world, to make things a bit squeaky bum time as well. Tom, from your perspective, Harrison doing well. We know he's a proven coach versus Dave. Was this a question of the immovable object versus whatever sporting cliche to throw out there as well?
Yeah. Harrison knows this orc team well. I played against him last season, and by the looks of things, as we just mentioned, he didn't kind of set off in the right direction at the start of the season, but it's clearly starting to pick up speed on this. Obviously injuring straight away in turn 3. Then I assume that must be either a go for it, where the Ghoul Runner's got a niggling injury, or maybe a block that went wrong. Then the touchdown came, and then it went a little bit quiet, and following up with a casualty, and then something that which is quite interesting doesn't seem to be happening a lot, which is fouling in this season. I haven't seen as much fouling as in previous seasons being shown in here, so it looked like it was a pretty straightforward win for Harrison on this game.
Very true. Coming back, is that something Jane and Scott, you guys have? Would you say that's a fair comment and a theme for this season? Are we light on fouling? Chat, put your comments in if you need to. But what do you think, Jane? What do you think? Fouling? Yes, no? Are people doing it more?
I think.
Scott.
I can hear
everybody back in the room. 3, 2, 1. It must be. I've just had an OBS drop off and then a reconnect. So it looks like we're all back in the room. Looks like we're still streaming despite these goblins. If you can keep an eye on them, Scott, that'd be great. So fouling, yes or no, Jane?
Less. I think there is less fouling this year. It got to a bit of a competition last year to see who could foul the most, and I think that was just kind of fun. But I think people have maybe moved on from it. A little bit of fouling at the end of the game is always a good idea, not the beginning.
Mr. Norman, the Prince of the Goblins, what do you think? Fouling, yes, no, yourself? Or is it getting worse or more, or not enough?
Yeah, first action, every turn, foul. I say that somewhat jokingly because I have done that a few times this season, but I'm biased. I have a specific player ideal for fouling. It's one of the only ways I'm going to do any damage. And annoyingly, it doesn't count towards your casualty bonus points, which is annoying because I would have had more points this season. But I love it. I love putting the boot in. It's great. Dirty player is probably my favourite skill. So
something beautiful to look forward to. So, Mr. Dave Rue did you a big favour with this 1-0 win against Harrison there. Oh, sorry, 1-0 defeat. Dave couldn't quite give you a solid one, as we said about. And we'll come back to see how that impacted the overall group very shortly indeed. So, sticking with that, as if that wasn't enough, Mr. David Rue went straight from the wonderful world of big bashy orcs to the wonderful world of things which are either very quick and you can't get hold of them, or very squishy. So, Dave against Skaven didn't really impact the overall league. From your perspective, Tom, was this what you would have expected at the start of it? We know there's been issues in terms of with Carl and in terms of the Skaven really struggling with lots of casualties. We can see on the SPP there as well for David. 2-0 win, lots of SPPs, 3 cash. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, straight away with bringing Skitter, Stab, and
You
Scrap.
back there? You think you're on mute there, Tom?
No, I can hear.
Yeah, can you hear? Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
I can't, so it must be just me then. But we can hear everybody else.
Oh, those great. Right. Yeah. So it was basically looks like he took 2 star players, Skitter, Stab, and Scrapper Sorehead. Skitter straight away in with the casualty on turn 1, which is always
I
nice to
can't
see.
hear Tom. I can hear you, Jane. I can hear Scott. Can't hear Mr. Tom Hovell though. What's he been up to?
Is he out on the stream or not?
I'm here.
Don't know. He looks like he's on it. He's not in Video Ninja. Tom, you might have to jump off and well.
Okay. I'll jump off and back on it.
yeah, chat can't hear Tom.
Yeah.
Oh no, we can. They can hear Tom.
They can hear Tom. Cool. So everybody can hear Tom except me. That's fine. But you can hear everybody else. Thank you, JD. Okay. Just in this one then, as it's your group, another one then, what's your thoughts on this in terms of Carl's first season with the Skaven versus Mr. Reeve there, Scott?
Yeah, so I was chatting with the Skaven coach because he's been getting slapped around, and lovely coach to play against. So the Scrapper, Sorehead, and Stab one's a gutter runner and one's a pogo goblin who I think has sprint and sure feet, so he's movement 10. So it was just like go for speed and just leg it. Looks like it didn't quite pan out. Dave is really good at caging off and just slowing everything down when he wants to, and then he always breaks away with the ghouls. Yeah, Dave's tricky, especially when you bring in, rookie players and crappy line rats that you're forced to bring.
So, Jane, you've played many teams. What's your experience playing Skaven, and what would you say to, obviously, Carl, in terms of the Plague Brigade? Has he had a really tough season against Mr. Norman, against Dave as well? Suffered a lot of casualties this year.
Yeah, it's sometimes the dice just seem to be against you, and Dave's a really good player, so you're never going to have an easy time of it. And Skaven can be quite swingy as well. They're absolutely fantastic for. Sorry, you like? Yeah, they're absolutely fantastic for running up the pitch, but they can also like easily. So there's that to deal with as well. So it's a bit of a swingy team. I think you've got to like take the hits, but stay brave, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. As a Skaven coach myself, it's very much so when the dice go your way, you are on an absolute mission. So otherwise, it can be a very long day at the office, to say the least, as well.
It's a team I really fancy, to be honest. That all that speed and agility just appeals to me.
It can be as well. So what's we got in chat? So Carl was saying, yeah, just could not move up the pitch. I think most of my team chilled, KO'd. Yeah, Dave's positioning was bonkers. A big harsh match there as well, which really had an impact in terms of this group. That we'll come on to shortly in terms of some of the make or break matches as well. We're going to go away from that, though, for a moment. We're going to go away to Chaos Cola, and this is Justin and his halflings, the T-Belly Trudgers, who came off the back with great results, some great results there in terms of trees for touchdowns, throwing halflings, one-turn touchdowns, and all of that good stuff as well. I think it was a 4-0 win off the back of Graham and his Skaven as well, coming up against Elliot. So this was a really big one for Elliot in terms of would he progress, would he not progress. Been a tough season with the necromantic horrors there for Elliot this season, Jane. As a fellow necro coach yourself, does it just show how difficult this team can be?
I think it's very different to what he's played before, isn't it? If I remember rightly, Elliot's been quite a bashy team before. Is that right? He's been playing bashy teams.
I think he has, yeah.
Moving on to Necromantic, where you've got some quite vulnerable players, and a team that's a hybrid team again. It's quite difficult to know what to do with them. I think being able to adapt and not put yourself in a position to just throw lots of blocks, wait for the opposition to come to you, and then make a break for it, is probably the way to go with it. And I think there's his results. If you look at his results over the course of the season, you can see he's just like been improving all the time with them. And this result here just shows how much he's come on. I mean, Elliot's a really good player. It's not going to take him long to adapt to a new team.
Yeah, 14 SPP, 5 casualties against the halflings as well. So he really was, as it seemed to be Elliot, starting to make things, as we can see, even when the fact that we had, who do we have? We had Cindy, we had Acorn, we had the halfling master chef, something a bit of a theme that halflings and Justin are going for this season. Scott, from your perspective, were you is there something that you would do in terms of a stunty team with something like, a lot of star players, as much inducement as you can?
Yeah, that tends to be. And Cindy and it was just horrific. Pies everywhere, and then an angry squirrel frenzying people off the pitch. Like when them two work, they really work, but they are much like the majority of the halflings, squishy. So
cool. And Tom, you're back in the room. Is he back in the room? Can you hear us, Mr. Tom Bobble?
I can hear you.
We're back. There you go. So apologies, Tom, I had to jump off. Back in as we always.
Jane might have dropped off now.
We'll get Jane back. We think we cracked the technical side of it as well. Must be those goblins. Big win for Elliot this time, really turning it around. Do you think Elliot's starting to find his groove with the necromantic horror, Tom?
Yeah, I think so, because he didn't have the best of starts, and I know that previously he was running goblins, wasn't it? No, that was Robert. No, so Elliot with the dwarves. So yeah, as Jane kind of mentioned, they're a different style team, the necromantic horrors, but he has done like a lot of other people have done. He's randomed the skills on some that he's not really fussed about, but then he's also focused on one particular werewolf, Cecilia, which has got block and tackle now, and has also already got 5 SPP as well. So, and it also looks like it's the Elliot's star player, on the basis that he's got 3 touchdowns and 3 casualties from that werewolf. So if there was ever a target on a back, that's the one to go for.
That's a risky move with a werewolf.
The werewolf does have a bounty against it. If he does, I think he's been recommended several times. So if you do need to get a bounty on, boys and girls, feel free to pick up Cecilia or Celica, whatever the name of that werewolf is, and do your best, raise a bit of money, get there as well. What's your thoughts on facing werewolves like that then, Scott? Is that something as a goblin player it scares you to death, or you just avoid at all costs? Or you just go for it?
They're only strength 3, if memory serves, so they're not scary in that department. The claws don't really bother me alignment. If you bring in trolls, anything with claws is quite scary. But as it's the werewolf speed I'm more worried about, less the punchability of them.
So it's an interesting match here going into it. Elliot, obviously, we know he needed a win. He did get that win. And again, really making things interesting as we go on to the next stage for Chaos Cola and for the rest of the teams as well. Let's go then next one in terms of, am I right in actually thinking, did that mean Elliot was out already and couldn't qualify, if I remember? So we'll come on to that and have a look shortly. But we're going to move away from halflings and we're going to move away from Necro into Old World Alliance versus the Vampires of Mr. John Reed. So again, really been one of those matches in terms of this. A 1-1 draw. SPP sort of shared nice and equally in terms of the fans. Was this just a match, guys, in terms of two coaches whose teams haven't quite clicked for them yet this season? So is it just about getting out there and stretching the legs, trying a few things? What's your thoughts on this one, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. Although it seems to be one of those quite spread out when it comes to things like fouling and touchdowns and casualties. It does seem that both teams are quite difficult to play. Vampires, although have got lots of fantastic skills, always come with that unpredictability of bloodlust. And these, obviously we've got three three Old World Alliance teams in the league. This one's kind of sitting in the middle of the two. We've got obviously Scott with his team riding the top of his league, his division, and then obviously we've got Chris with his at the bottom of his. Whereas this one, I believe, oh no, I tell a lie. This one was sitting at the bottom of the league of his table as well. So these are, as I say, these to play. So it'd be interesting to know whether the coaches are actually enjoying it, playing these teams, and whether they're going to take them in the next season.
I think we know what Chris Coe's answer would be. Chris can't wait. It can't come quick enough the day that Chris does not have to play OWA as well again. I don't think Scott is particularly thrilled with them as well. And I know he's not going to be playing them in season 8 as well. So very mixed bag. Jane, Old World Alliance, is it something that's ever made you think, yeah, I'll give these guys a go? Or do you just shake your head and run?
I love the variety on them.
You're on mute there, Jane. Yeah, she's
I can hear her.
Okay. Might be just me then. So we can hear it. Someone can hear you. That's great. Go for it, Jane.
Variety of them. I love the idea of lobbing teammates around. That's something I really aim to go for my next team. The idea of like just chucking someone into the mix to see what happens. It's great. I think again, it's possibly a very swingy team as well. One you have to be careful with where you decide to throw your weight around. It's a good mix. Difficult team, I think. Just a difficult team all round.
Yeah, I agree.
Scott can't tell
So
us.
Scott,
when the lips stop moving,
Alliance,
Scott, then they're finished.
if they maybe did let goblins in, would they ever, tempt you?
They're kind of like an Iceland buffet. You get a little bit of everything, but they're all just beige and a bit bland.
Is it a bit of the sum of the parts doesn't equal the potential of what it could be, and they're just a bit meh?
It does, like you look at their skills, and they have the worser skills of their straight dwarf counterpart, and they've got animosity towards each other and stuff. It just seems a real mismatched team. But apparently, according to the Nats, they're doing really well. So
yeah,
there must be something.
Very well in the meta, absolutely. So maybe at A&DBBL we are bucking the trend of that meta. And we've obviously been accused of bucking the trend before on lots of occasions as well. So not a long one to do as well. And then former champion, of course, everybody's favourites. The gentleman's gentleman, Mr. John Reader, not doing the best with vampires. Maybe he wanted to. As a former vampire coach, Tom, anything you would like to share with John in terms of motivational speeches, or just put him in a bin? What would you do?
Just don't roll ones. That's all I can say. Just don't roll ones.
Okay, so mixed bag there. Vampires for you, Jane?
I like the way John is, just systematically getting the skills on there. It's not rushing and putting many randoms on there. So just skilling up the players and starting to make them a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more scary. I think it's a slow grind with this team, isn't it? Just to get they don't start with a lot of skills, and there's that bloodlust is just a little bit unnerving. Like you say, just don't roll ones. I think he's doing. John's a great player as well. I played against him last season. He's got a steady run on it. Does he know if he's going to take them next year? Does anyone know if he's going to take them next season?
Don't. We'll have to.
I'd be interested to know, because he looks like he's running up for.
I'm assuming this is going to be a stupid question, Scott, but vampires for you, even if you painted them green?
See, I do like the whole vampire team, and they do feel slightly goblin-y, because you're like, I'll do a thing, and then they hubris and they roll a 1 and they bite each other. That's hilarious. But to solve that, pro tip, vampire players, just run 16 thralls.
There you go, guys. This isn't just about people wittering and sophistication and good looks. It's actual real world advice there. So if you do want it as a tester, 16 thralls, you've heard it from Scott Norman. Can you trademark that or copyright that, Scott? Cool. So we're going to move over. I don't know if either John or Jack are in chat tonight, but if they do want to give their thoughts, opinions, will they run these teams again? Is this going to be straight to the bin after their conference days, or is it going to be something they're going to build on maybe for season 8? Watch this space. Let's find out. So we're going to go from vampires and Old World Alliance, that mixed bag, into what then was a very interesting match. So Harrison had the momentum of behind him and his orcs in Group Achilea as well, coming up against Plague Brigade and Carl and his Skaven, who, as we just talked about, were seeming to be everybody's favorite punching bag in this particular division as well. And it wasn't quite to be. Scott Norman, what's your thoughts? Was this the big surprise of your league so far?
Yeah, so going into this game, again, no favourites because everyone in my division has been great, but I really needed the Rats to win. It was the only way I was going to get through. Even in a draw, a 0-0 draw, Harrison was through. We'd be tied on touchdown difference, but because he pitch cleared me and has been smacking everybody all season, he was through on casualties. So looking at it on paper, Skaven have had a rough time. They were on 0 points. And then I wake up on the day to open my phone and they're 1-0 up and I'm through and I'm loving it. And then it all changed.
So Carl had come in. He'd obviously had a bit of a difficult one. We know he took the extra gutter runner with Skitter Stab, who is a very terrifying gutter runner to be against as well. Tom, Skitter Stab, does he just add that annoying? Cool. 2 seconds, guys. I think we've had a bit of a gremlin in the works there as well. Just want to make sure everybody is back up and running. I don't know why OBS seems to have dropped off again this evening. So we're just going to make sure everybody's up to speed and everybody's back, because this was an amazing match. Obviously, it was very, very challenging. Very, very good. Let's just do this in terms of making sure we can get people where they should be. So the Rats, they're moving to be 2-1 up. 1-0 after turn 8. And then all of a sudden, Orcs start doing what Orcs start doing very well. Ed Oliver starts with a casualty on another injured gutter runner as well. Gutter runners, the blitzers and the rats seem to come back by getting rid of an Orc lineman. So, and even Skitter Stab was badly hurt as well. So, if he's there, Mr. You there, Scott? Because we seem to have dropped him.
Yep, can hear you.
So it had been 1-1, turn 15. Things are looking very squeaky for the Goblins. Tom, you were next door at this point, I believe. So do you want to walk us through what happened at the end of this match then?
Yeah. So this was a really interesting one. So the Orcs had the ball within scoring distance, but clearly Harrison was trying to work the casualty rates as well. So he needed to get more casualties on it. He was initially going to casualties and stall with only a turn to go before he can score. But he had a change of heart and decided to score, bringing it to 1-1 and leaving it open for a one-turn touchdown. The crazy thing was that he then, during his last turn, he then went to do a block with 2 dice and double sculled it with no rerolls. So it paid off to score in that previous turn rather than go for the casualties. And then it was, as you quite rightly say, the gutter runners just legged it down the pitch and scored a one-turn touchdown.
And it was such a moment, a pivotal moment in this match, really, when Harrison, all he needed was the extra cash. He would have got the bonus points, would have been through them as well. So, Jane, from your perspective, how did you feel on watching this one? Such a close match, back and forth, lots of plot and twist turns as well.
Yeah, I've just been flicking through the tour play there. It looks like the Buffalo Biggins had a bit of a comeback at the end there with some casualties, but I mean, big up the skate. I've running around doing the damage. It's supposed to be a team that's not as bashy as other teams, more agile, and seem to have managed to do a fair bit of damage there. Looks like the dice were better on that run than they have been on previous ones.
Absolutely.
Cool. So a big match then had big implications that we'll come on to see in terms of Achilles. One coach on here or several coaches on here were smiling, not just at what Nuffle was throwing onto the pitch in terms of those last minute dice rolls as well. A great end to what's been a really difficult season for Carl, then as he will go into the next phases of A&DBBL season 7 as well. So we're moving then from Achilles, and what was a bit of an upset, we're now moving into, here he is, Tom Hovell, take the stage. Must-win match, really, against the Scythian Warriors. Over to you.
Yeah, this was one of those games where, amazingly, my dice played ball, quite literally. Straight away, it was a situation where I managed to get the ball handed to me, having it kicked to me on the first turn, and managed to score a 2-turn touchdown with one of my catchers just legging it down the pitch. At that point, it got a little bit difficult where I was kind of defending quite hard, but managed to pluck the ball from the Amazon team and then go in and score second in turn 5. To kind of add kind of insult to injury, my blitzer who desperately needed a kind of SPP stood up and took out a line woman on turn 8 just before the second half. Then it kind of bedded down a little bit. So from that point, there was quite a lot of dodging from the Amazons, as they naturally do. I think Leanne definitely started to get an understanding of their strengths, of how you can play with those Amazons. There was a lot of kind of double tactics on her side of things, and from this point, I was just quite fortunate to score the next 2 touchdowns. So I kind of congratulate Leanne, because it is her first season, and I think she's potentially not even into double figures on how many games of Blood Bowl she's actually played in her life. She is still learning that team, but I do think that team does suit her. She has kind of got into the idea of how to dodge, how to take advantage of those kind of built-in re-rolls, so to speak. She unfortunately previously, and I'm sorry, Jane, but I taught in my previous game, I showed her why people cage, and now she cages. So it's not that easy to get the ball off her now. So she's learning, and I hope to see her in the next season. And I'm definitely up for a kind of any kind of friendly games during the season.
Maybe in a purely Blood Bowl coaching way, we should get Leanne spending some quality time with Mr. Tom Huns. Answers and thoughts on a postcard on that side. Just as a rookie coach, playing some tough matches as well there, Jane. What would be your words of advice to Leanne?
Yeah, I think she had a really rough start. I mean, straight into it with no practice. I think her first game of Blood Bowl was actually just straight into a league game. So yeah, it's a pretty brave thing to do, really. Not having much. It took me 2 seasons, I think, to finally get the idea of who helps who and the block. I'm probably still not there most of the time. It certainly looks like she's gonna be a lot tougher opponent for this next game. Starting to get the hang of it a little bit. Like you say, caging up the ball, a bit looser now. Yeah, you still managed to get 4 touchdowns somehow to Tom, though. So what's that about?
I just needed the points, desperate for the points.
So just before we go on to the rest of the matches in this division, then Scott, and you're not allowed to answer this with just go and play goblins. What advice would you give any rookie coach, Leanne in particular, after their first season in A&DBBL?
It gets easier. Redraft. You've got a few good players. Maybe think to the future. It's what I did with my flumps into flamingos. And I mean, I saw the paint job that she's done on them, that she uploaded in the discs.
OBS. Maybe this is what you do when you get a free, when we get a donated free laptop. Maybe we need a bit of TLC to give it. Make sure it's got the one over and get rid of any goblins. So everybody back in the room then. Leanne, yeah, keep going. It is.
I can leave if you want.
No. We're going to fight our way through. We always do, Scott, anyway. So we're now going on away from the Orchiades. In terms of, it is, as we can see, the joys of the internet as well that we've currently got. So we are here now. We're looking at, we've looked at the 4-0 win. We're now, before we come on to some of the bigger matches, or looking then at what really was it, these 2 players then. We're going to move on to Spike Mag Group. This is JD and his Dark Elves against the wonderful Circus Flemtasia from Andy as well. Both different teams, very bashy, very mutated Nurgle versus very randomized Dark Elves who have had an absolutely fantastic season. We look at this match, however, big win for Nurgle, lots of casualties and SPPs in, which first of all, Was this the result you were expecting, Jane? Nurgle versus those very fragile but very frightening Dark Elves.
I'm actually looking at Dark Elves as a team I'd possibly take to a tournament or bring on for another season. And I don't think they're as fragile as you think they are. They're another hybrid team, which obviously seems to be something that attracts me. So they can go either way with something. And Nurgle's the same, with some very weak players, some very strong players. So I really think this is down to the coaches and possibly down to the dice. And you just look at the injuries and casualties on this; it's bonkers.
Yeah, we look at it. Question there before we go on to look at the detail of the injuries and casualties, Jane. One thing we've talked about on previous Monday night roundups is how JD has obviously gone with the the prayers of the gods. He's gone with whatever blessing Nuffle has bestowed upon him in terms of randomized skills. Is that something you would do as a future maybe Dark Elf coach? Is that the way you would develop a team, or would you specifically skill them up?
You know what? I'd love to say I would, but then when I get the skill that I really don't want, then I immediately revert back to making sure that I get the skill that I do need. But then, I mean, leap. Some of these skills in here, when you think of how to use them, can be fantastic. Leap is something that I'm really dying to take on my ghoul runners next because I think it's going to be fairly clutch to just get out of trouble. And getting that as a random skill on a runner, you can just play to the strengths then, can't you? You can have fun with it, do something different, rather than making a plan and going down the same route as everybody else.
It is as well. So yeah, a lot of casualties, a lot of violence. Tom, what's your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, so I've got some inside track on this because I actually turned up at the shop just after the first touchdown, and I know what Andy's secret sauce was for coming back after 1-0. Basically, it was last Saturday, which was a very, very hot in the shop as well. And just after the touchdown, Andy put on his top hat and tails circus performer one. And as we know, Papa Nurgle loves any bodily excretions, and the amount of sweat coming off Andy pleased the gods to bring in the Pestival coming straight in with the first touchdown, then casualty after casualty coming through as each of them worship his sweat pouring onto the pitch, and then touchdown after touchdown. And equally it was ironic considering how hot it was in the actual shop that they started off in a blizzard as well. So that kind of hampered the Elves game as well, because they could only do short and quick passes, and also you couldn't really rush a lot. So I put it down to the fact that as soon as he put on that top hat and tails for the ringmaster, his fortune completely changed.
So a sweaty man in a suit.
I mean, it's a winner every time, isn't it?
It is.
We like to paint a picture of a quality coaching establishment and setup at A&DBBL. Interestingly, it gives us three. If we just look at JD's teams going into the championship, done an incredible job first season with these Dark Elves. Do you think this is going to come back and bite him in terms of this particular match, Scott? If we look at his team at the moment, he's down to, I believe, 8 players. He does have 80,000 in the kitty, so there is room if he wants to go. He's missing, obviously, an assassin and a runner as well. So he's going to have, a few people out as well. Is this nothing to worry about? He'll get by it, or is this possibly going to catch him out? And is Nuffle going to catch up with the Dark Elves? What's your thoughts on this, Scott?
So just looking at the lineup, the two positionals, but basically every other player bar 2 are all skilled up to some extent. It's quite scary looking at it. Tackle, Dauntless, Pro, Frenzy, like that, and the basic stat linemen aren't the best. They don't have any skills, but I mean, they're still 2+ agility. So I think he's going to be all right. I think if he can take minimal casualties in the next game and have a full roster for the game after, I think he's going to be a bit of a threat wherever he ends up.
I agree. I mean, you've got a witch elf there with block, tackle, and kick, so he can place that ball where he wants to, and he's got the movement to get there as well. Plus, of course, when you've got an assassin who's, you've got sure feet, there's no reason you won't be able to go for it in terms of those extra rushes. So, so even though he might be a few men down, I think JD's going to be a challenging opposition for whoever he draws in the next matches as well. And Andy's done really well. Nurgle first season, he might have got, I think in terms of videos, dad dancing, the top hat and tails as well. And some of those random skills on Nurgle looking very dangerous. Is this a team, one of those quiet ones you'd like to avoid if you were in this side of the draw?
Yes, absolutely.
And they look spectacular. They really do fit the theme he's gone with. Plus, also these mutations. This is probably one of the very few teams that can use mutations, and they do interest in me. Maybe for potentially a tournament, and then see how it goes from there.
And they're green. They are. Everybody loves them, and they're as random as you can. Surely, Scott Norman, this is calling out to you for a future tournament, for a future A&DBBL league.
Yeah, they are interesting. The randomness of the mutations is great. I am slightly concerned about what he's doing with his rot spawn. He's sat there on 10 SPP, so I don't know what he's got planned for that. That could turn nasty.
Let's have a look what he's got. So what has he got? He's got 8 for that second skill, or you can random it on 6, I believe. So maybe he's saving up to see who his opponent is and then give it a go. But this was a very, very interesting group. I can't remember if you've got the stats there, Tom, who we said before we jump into the leagues ready to hand in terms of who the predictions were for going up, and we'll start to look at how we did as well. But an interesting matchup. They were both through, both top of the league. Will it come back to benefit one coach more than the other? So let's go on to the one they've all been waiting for. This was make or break in terms of Orchidas. We'd seen the movement. We'd seen, obviously, Tom cheating heavily against Leanne and the Amazons. We'd seen Jane fighting out in a slugfest against the North. We came into this, Jane needed the win. Tom just needed the draw as well. So I'm not going to say anything more. Jane, do you want to explain how you were robbed? And then Tom, you can explain how you robbed it?
Awesome. So can I start out with I think we should do a little tit for tat here. My best moment was rolling double skulls on my very first block, and then rolling a 12 on my actual first successful block on you with the dice that from next dice, please, new dice, please. That's my favorite part of the game. Tom, what about you?
Yeah, just a word of advice to Scott and Chris: do not hand out the yellow these dice.
Yeah, please. No, don't hand out anymore.
They were clearly kind of cast in the fires of Nuffle because they were rolling it spectacular. I knew this was going to be a tough match. I really did, especially after in turn 2, I got my first cat was badly hurt, and then
it all happened because you just got overexcited, didn't you, Tom?
I did. I got Fumblerooski on my catcher. On my thrower, and I was trying to be clever. That's it. It doesn't pay to be clever.
So what possessed you? This was going to be my question, and Jane sort of slightly being it, but let's explore that a bit more. We've talked about fouls, and maybe subconsciously you were thinking, Tom, there aren't enough fouls in the matches at the moment. You just lost one of your star catchers who's gone, Frank Butterfingers, and then all of a sudden you think Nigel Fumbleton. He's got, I believe, sprint and sure feet or sprint and jump up. So he's got the range, he's got the moves, and then you send him in for a foul.
Turn 3 as well.
Turn 3, yeah. Rookie mistake. So yeah, by turn 3, so yeah, the first touchdown was inevitable at that point. But
it was a long game. I really don't know if you look at the time there, we were well over 4 hours. And I think both of us were at some point looking at our team and just trying not to make too many mistakes. To be fair, I don't think either of us made a lot of mistakes with positioning or anything. And the mistakes that we did make were capitalized on, which is why we've got the 1-1 result there.
I think just also to mention that obviously you got your touchdown in turn 7, which gave me a 1 turn to manage to get a touchdown. And very interestingly, I've never thrown team players.
Oh my god!
And I had a halfling. I have an ogre. The ball was a high kick, so I put my catcher underneath it, and ironically, it caught it. Now, that was right on my touch line. So I could not get my my thrower to straight away to the halfling. But using Fumblerooski, I could run past Griff, drop it next to Griff. Griff could then pick it up and then hand it off to the halfling. That then means that the ogre can throw the halfling because you can't use pass and throw player in the same turn. I successfully rolled a 6 on the throw with that of that ogre with the halfling. The bounce, you bounce 3 times. It bounced me back to the point that when I ran with the halfling 5 plus the extra 2 for the rush, I was literally next to the touchline. And
then I stupidly came in, blitzed with the werewolf, and very nearly had to push him in for the touchdown because I blocked off all the other options for him and had to take a skull on my werewolf in order to stop me stupidly pushing the halfling in for a touchdown. I nearly threw my dice on the floor and walked out the shop at that point until I realized what I could do.
Exactly.
Oh, question on that. A bit of a crunchy rule one. Werewolf has frenzy, right?
Yes.
Would it have instantly scored a touchdown, or would you have had to do the second frenzy and push them past the end zone, crouch surf?
Touchdown is a touchdown, and that's it.
Touchdown, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, okay.
So, interestingly, I put the picture in the chat in Discord about the werewolf on the wraith. Subject of a block, and would I push him onto the ball or not? We did push him onto the ball, and I think it did work in my favor in the end, didn't it?
It did.
So it was a 50-50 chance, and those because obviously it can't be a turnover if I'm being blocked, and I got sidestep, so I can choose to sidestep onto the ball and fling it anywhere, and that actually worked well for me both times.
My only saving grace in that game was having Griff on the pitch.
Oh, Griff was legend. He literally saved the day. Yeah. Also, I didn't notice that I wasn't on the touchline at one point and allowed your strip ball to push my werewolf and take the ball off me. And that was the most stupid. That was a seriously critical mistake for me, which resulted in Griff's touchdown there.
But great game.
It was epic. It was a really good game. And it was good fun as well. I had lots of laughs through it.
Exactly.
So, Tom, you've started the season. You said your ambition was to get 2 wins in this season's league. You've got 3 wins and a draw. You've qualified for the championship, so congratulations on that. You've come and you've picked up new skills in terms of throwing anything that basically can be lifted up, and Fumblerooski now seems to be your new, raison d'etre, as it were. So, are humans your new thing? You're in form? Yes.
Yeah, I like them. As I said right at the beginning, this is potentially a 2-season team. I'm pleased with how they've been kind of working. They, again, for someone who's jumped around with a lot of teams and not actually stuck with one, the Humans are a really good kind of team to kind of get that groove back into, like, just sticking with one team. And I think for me, it's the flexibility of them. Yes, you can have the fast catchers, but you've also got a bit of muscle there with your blitzers and your ogres, ogre as well. Plus also a bit of fun with the halfling and just trying some desperate measures of sort of throwing things.
Very good. So it looks like we have a convert to that. So fantastic. Scott, whilst you're on, what's your thoughts on Humans or Necro? Is there anything that interests you in the future?
I actually painted a zombie lineman yesterday, so that's about as far as my delve into Necro has gone. And I think I gave you my human team to paint for me. So
sitting over there looking beautiful. And then Jane, obviously second season now with Shambleton. Are you going to be taking them forward for a third season, or are you going to be looking for sort of something a bit more edge based? You mentioned Dark Elves there. You've mentioned the Want to Leave. You've mentioned the Dirty, Filthy, Wonderful Skaven. What do you think of season 8 Insider track here, Jane?
Oh, I don't know. I'm loving my necromantic horror. I don't know what it is about them. I've just got a real soft spot for the whole team. I love that I picture them in my head whenever I'm playing as they're moving a zombie, them like lurching and staggering across the pitch, making funny noises, and the werewolves howling. For some reason they're getting into my head. I'm really enjoying role playing it in my own head. Now, obviously, I don't do this out loud because it would be very, very disturbing for everyone. But yeah, I just love them, and I think I'm going to take them again next year. Next season.
Okay, so
and I can't be asked to paint another team. There we go.
So that brought Orchid us to an incredible close, really. What has been a really good advert for A&DBBL. We've seen 2 new coaches, different sets of results. We've seen 2, I wouldn't say more mature individuals with some A&DBBL experience behind them as well, really setting standards. And guys, thank you for all your community help, support, and that. Brings us then on to the last match. I know our coach Creedy's is in chat as well tonight. So this was the Big Critters, John and his gnomes versus Acredes. Now, in the initial matchup earlier in the season, the gnomes took what's fair to say a complete kicking, got really bullied and beaten off the pitch. At one point, they were 2-1 down in this, but as you can see from the SPP, from the score, and if we look at the actual casualties, we can start to see that the OWA bucked the trend that we've seen with other OWA coaches, started to get injuries in terms of those. So even taking Mascot and Akel, we can see we had a Beastmaster, we had an Illusionist, we had the Fox, all badly hurt by turn 3 as well. So looking pretty tough. And then it was actually a conceded match by John versus Scott as well. What's your thoughts on that, Tom? Was that something you'd ever look at doing in terms of if things are looking that bad, would you fight till the dying player, or would you look at possibly conceding and keeping what you've got to minimize damage for further on in the season?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I've always kind of just want to play to kind of learn my team, but I suppose that's a potential tactic for the kind of, as you quite rightly say, saving your players, making sure that some of your key ones like the Foxes and maybe even the Illusionists and Beastmen in the gnome team don't get absolutely decimated. I've never kind of thought of conceding, but like I say, it's just not for me, but it's clearly sometimes a tactic that, you know, cut your losses and keep your team in reserve. I know that at one point that I think nearly took out a treeman on Scott's team. I'm sure you can correct me or not in the chat, which kind of made sure that Scott said, right, that score's got to die. But in fact, he only managed to get out by a halfling by the looks of things. So I suppose it's a difficult one. I think we've back end and we know that we can't win the game or even potentially draw it, and then you kind of do think, do we just concede and just call it a day? I don't know. What's your thoughts on it, Jane?
I think we go back to, and I keep coming back to the same thing. I knew nothing about Blood Bowl my first season. I played for fun and I had a great time, and I lost quite a lot. Second season, but I also did reasonably well. Second season, I decided I wanted to do better, and I didn't enjoy it as much. Same in the third season. I'm back in season 4, and I'm just playing for fun again. Obviously, I'm playing to win, and I'm trying to play well, but I'm also playing for fun. And I think that for me is should be the major part of it. So even if you are down, I know it's demoralizing, I know it's tough. Find a way to try and realize it's just a game of dice. And you know, he's up against a really good coach. Scott's amazing. And I think try and find a way in your head to realize that it's just a game. It's a game of dice. We're playing for fun. Try and find a way to enjoy it and play on through. Conceding is only a thing as if you just all decide that the bar's more important, or you've got a train to catch, or the shop's closing, whatever it is. I don't think I'd ever concede.
Cool. So we're using chat saying that Acorn was taken out by the Dwarf Blitzer, not just registered at the right time. And Luke makes a fair point, and evening, Luke. You can learn a lot playing uphill too. Scott's not been a great season for Gnomes, been a difficult one for the stunty teams. Obviously, A&DBBL reflecting some tournament matches as well. What's your thoughts on Gnomes? They've obviously just been launched this year. Where do they stand? Good place, not so good place, need a bit of love from GW?
I think they're a redraft team. I think get some points in them second season, they'll put in some surprising, which is why they're doing decent in tournaments, because you get the skills to just give to them straight away. But in a league, you've got to build that up, and being as weak as they are, they do get splattered. With pitch clears and conceding and stuff, I got pitch cleared against Harrison my second game, and I had to field 3 linemen, and because 2 of them came back from KO, and we went for it, and we uphilled into his orc, got him down and fouled him, and almost had him. So even when the chips are down, just throw 3 dice at something. If you get a triple pow, you are winning at this point. Solve the score, have a laugh, throw some dice, and just stick at it. It's toy soldiers at the end of the day. Just have fun.
Yeah. So it isn't the coach's prerogative. You can, as a coach, concede if you want to. Is it in the spirit of the game and what we do? A&DBBL conversation ongoing, but that's for each of us as individual coaches to look at as well. So that takes us to 10 matches for this evening. That was it. So quite a busy week in terms of results. Some ups, some downs, some big shocks and turnarounds, which did have a big impact in terms of the standings. So let's have a look at the standings then. So we've talked about him. Here he goes. A moment in the spotlight. We've talked about Orchidus. We've talked about that Jack had a great first season in his rookie season. But there you go. I'm assuming you've got a screenshot of that, Tom, framed above the mantelpiece, in the kitchen, in the toilet, and every single room in the Hobble household.
Yep. We've got it laminated. It's all our placemats on the table. Yeah.
So anybody who gets a Christmas present from Tom Hobble this year, you know what you're going to get. Just you know.
Novelty mug.
And then Jane, any thoughts, any expectations? Are you going to try something different in your last match against Leanne, or is it just go out there, roll those yellow dice, and see what Nuffles prayers answers? Yeah,
I don't know really. I might try something a bit different. I'm if I'm going to redraft this team next year, I'm going to just hang on to the skills, I think, so I can redraft them cheaper and then throw the skills in there later. I'm loving the idea of like jumping over stuff, running too far and too fast. I think I'll try something different, but then maybe I won't. I'll see how I feel on the day. But I'm looking forward to. There's some great people in the championship, in the conference league, whatever it is, afterwards. And I'm looking forward to playing another full set of playoffs. That should be fun.
Cool. So we've got our first two players. Obviously, Jane, yourself, Leanne, join us. Lots of other coaches as well in the conference. More news on that, guys, in the next couple of weeks as well. A reminder as well, Tom, when do coaches have to get all their matches done by?
Yep. So the closing date is the 4th of July. So, Independence Day, Election Day, and end of the divisions of Blood Bowl Day.
So if you are an MP who happens to be listening in on this, and if you think you're going to be have some time on your hands come July the 5th, by all means, Season 8 will be starting in a couple of months. If you want to start drafting your team and thinking about painting and getting some practice games in, contact A&D and we'll sort you. So that's Orchidas almost done for the season. Then we're going to move on to Bloodwiser. We've talked about the situation there. So we do have the OWA sitting proud, 24 points at the top. 4 big wins, obviously conceded in there as well. But this league is done rather. Big shout out as well for Luke and his fetid feet. No, Luke, that doesn't get old. Trust me, that doesn't get old as well. Any surprises there in terms of the Bloodwiser League from any of our coaches on tonight?
Yeah.
I mean, Gnomes, 9 points. Like, it's good. That's solid points. 9 points is solid for a brand new stunty team that didn't even exist like 2 months ago or wherever it was. Like, yeah, I'd be well chuffed with that if I was John. Like, I know you've had a bit of a kick in. Probably, Bill Oddie wouldn't be happy with all the foxes and squirrels getting smushed, but I'd be chuffed with that. And you're going to say, and I think, yeah, I'm rooting for them in the playoff conference. That's for sure.
Excellent, Jane. What's your thoughts? As expected, that league.
I think probably I don't know so much about Luke and John for second and third, but certainly I would have expected Scott to go through. And I just hadn't realised that 9 points for the big credits for John. I mean, I think it's worth pointing out that I think I had a great season and really loved it, and he's got more points than me. So yeah, he may feel like he's had a bit of a kick in, but I don't think that's really the case.
And Tom, any surprises there? I just want to shout out though to Nick, because I know he's done a great job with the Inglorious Bastards. His ethos and his randomization and no re-rolls, absolutely fantastic to see.
No re-rolls, that's mad.
That's
I love it.
Just a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing is to go big in the biggest way or go home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's like it just shows that everyone's got the right mentality for the league. Just do your own thing, play your way, and sometimes it pays off.
Moving on in Chaos Cola. So this again is a decided. So we know we've got Jamie and Graham, which obviously that result could impact final standings and whatever random algorithm that tour play throws out for the knockout draws. We'll wait and see. But first of all, Elliot not making it through there. So this was obviously a big one. Still did well though. Still, 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 losses with the Necromantic Horror. We've seen Elliot developing as well. And we know anyone can beat anyone, and sometimes quite significantly on their day as well. Any surprises in here for this, or is it just beautiful for you to see a stunty team at the top of this division, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I love it and hate it because that's the Stunty Cup right there, isn't it? Like, he's top, well played. But I would take more Stunties in my playoff groups always, because I think deep down Stunty players have the most fun. Let's be honest. We're tossing small men up a pitch.
Well, that's where you hit it first there, guys. Tossing small men on pitches. That's where people. Sometimes it can get you shut down. Sometimes it can get you double your viewership. Who knows? So challenging season. We know it's been tight, and again, it'll be interesting how Jamie goes against Graham in terms of the toxin runners. Moving on to McMurtry's, still a few matches to go here. Still a couple of gnome teams in there. Dave holding second position with the Draystone Defenders as well. Nanny still got 3 matches to warm up in terms of the knockouts. He's looking well, 16 points. Is this a done deal, Tom? Is this all over, or is it something very much between Simon and Dave for that second match? What's your thoughts at the moment?
So Dave's doing a similar thing and randomizing his skills on those gnomes. And Sappy, the Truman, is looking insane now with pile driver, armbar, multiple block, and guard, all random on them. And as we've said, you've got to get your games in before the 4th of July, or else it's they don't count. So there's still some possibility that people could effectively rack up points by not playing the Rioters Rams and get in to the top position, because there's literally for the Draystone Defenders and the Rioters Rams, there's only 6 points between it, and you can potentially get a full 8 points with bonuses such as not conceding any touchdowns and the like. So there could be gnomes at the top of that division.
It could be indeed. So still lots to play for. Do you think the Gnomes have a chance, Jane, or do you think it's all done and dusted? Nanny and Rich are going to march on victorious into the knockouts.
Well, I hadn't thought of the fact that you could just push Rich out to the side and rack up the points on the other 3 players. That's an interesting tactic. I think Rich is a champion, isn't he? He's been up there every season now for me, 4 seasons that I've been here. So I think Rich is a done deal at the top, but yeah, everything to play for 2 and 3 there.
Cool. So we've got McMurtry's there. That's the league to finish. We're moving then on to Nesquik. A few more matches in here as well. This one again, though, is the done deal. Robert and James qualifying on well done there. Again, sorry to have to be the one to say it's got another stunty team through, another challenger in the stunty cup race as well. So we've already got yourself. Spoiler alert for I kill you, everybody. We've already got yourself. We've already got then ogres, and we've got halflings. Any of those teams you'd like to play, or any you'd like to avoid of those 2?
Just looking at the skills that the ogres on the ogre team have, no thank you. And they're not stunty because they are strength 5. So I think I need to bribe the referee a bit more, because clearly not a stunty team. The ogres are terrifying, and I know he plays them very well. So you just have to pray that they just bonehead an awful lot, I think. I'd take the halflings over the ogres.
Excellent. Well, James sitting there, obviously the last few games to get through in terms of the stunties, and James and Robert in terms of who will finish top of that division. But Tom, a great season for Robert, and the Graveyard Groovers really hit his stride this year. 4 from 4.
Yeah, he does like a bashy team, doesn't he? I know that he didn't have a good time last year with his goblins. I think because he was taking too many big guys in that stunty team. Surely that's as Scott will no doubt tell you. But he seems to be kind of really enjoying this, and he's still got 2 games to play on it. And I think it's pretty much a done deal with those 2 being up at the top there. It's just a matter of whether or not they've got to play each other in the final, and whether James can top it. Currently, James and OTFC are top of the Stunty Cup at the moment. Very tested straight after with equal second with the Halflings and the Goblins. So it's all to play for there.
All to play for, excellent. So let's move down from Nesquik to Ikilia. This is done, dusted. We talked earlier about how close this came down to. One double block away there for Harrison in terms of possibly getting the draw and getting a casualty, which would have put him through. That's the joys of Nuffle. This is why we play Blood Bowl. Scott, anything you want to say? Just want to take a moment, drink it all in, bit of gloating, feel free. This is your moment in the sun.
I'd like to gloat and say this was all part of my plan anyway. But no, I was 90% sure that I was not going to make it through. And then the Rats done me a solid. So officially Skaven are good. But now I've got to play all the really, really powerful teams in the next division. So I'm not sure how I really feel about it. I might actually skill up a player because I haven't done that once this season, I don't think.
Is there a risk you're going to skill someone up and then see it die? Or are you just going to take that choice and take that chance?
Well, I mean, Harrison done me a solid with killing my Goblin who had, 18 SPP. He murdered him. So I guess use it or lose it, right?
So many times I've heard those choice words. Absolutely. Let's go down to Spike Mag. We've talked about these. It's JD in chat. Take a bow, sir. Yourself and Andy, 2 coaches, 2 new teams, really playing well as well. Difficult season for Phil, some really challenging dice. And as soon as Mr. Coe gets rid of that OWA, I think his world will be a better place. So let's move quickly on from that perspective as well. Last one, we come down to Popcorn, yours truly as well. Tom through 6 from 6, fantastic. The Prince of Vampires, the Super Coach of the Amazons, had an amazing season. Double header on Saturday coming up this week. So you have Sam and the Double Yokes against Sid Saracens. If Sam gets a draw, or if he gets at least 2 bonus points, that should be good enough. And then we go straight into Wood Elves, the Cherry Bombs versus the Human Sid Saracens as well. Open and honesty, as we love this. Where's your money at on this one, Scott?
So I would love a crazy, crazy upset thing, much like happened in my league. So if you could just go out and smash and get 6 points, and then the other one goes your way, you're through. And that's what I'd love that. just throw it out there. Just mental things. That's my favorite.
Well, the dice can't. I say the dice can't possibly get worse, but this is Blood Bowl, and we know they can after what was a shocker of dice rolling last time against Tom and his legends. Jane, what's your thoughts? Where's your money at? Don't hold back.
Oh, too tough to tell this one. I think it's going to be another one that's a bit like mine and Tom's games. Sam and Scott, you're going to have the game of your life. You're both lovely people, and I'm sure you're just going to have loads of fun. And the best thing about it is, realistically, who goes through there, are you with it? I think it's all to play for, isn't it? Everything to play for in this division.
Tom, what's
it's
your
fantastic
thoughts?
to see it go down to the wire.
Go for it. No holds barred. Just go for it.
I think we're all going to go for it. It's actually ironic because Wood Elves obviously usually start quite a long curve. They are expensive, so I'm actually quite happy with they are where I want them to be in terms of skills, upgrades, upskilling. So yeah, we shall wait and see, but that'll be an interesting conversation next Monday night. If you haven't booked your fixture in, get them booked in. You know the usual way by now to book a fixture in, get it set up on Tour Play. One of you set up the table, speak to Scott in store. Don't use his personal, use the store communication. Get that table booked, get those. Again, Tom, when's the deadline?
The 4th of July. So you've got basically less than, I think even just... you got just over a week, so it'll be a week this Thursday that the closing is.
Excellent. Okay, last but by no means least, we've gone through quite a lot this evening, a few technical who's and ha's as much as anything else as well. So we'll go around the table. Jane, your game of the week and your possible player of the week who deserves a bounty.
Oh, I'm player of the week that deserves a bounty. I think the little halfling who took out the tree or tried to take out the tree. That's got to be my player of the week. That's a plucky move, isn't it, from the little guy there? Match of the week. I'm gonna be really selfish and just go for mine and Tom's. It's so epic. I was so knackered after it, but I had such a good time.
Tom?
Yeah, so my kind of player with the bounty is got to be Cecile on the I'm Not Boring Necromantic Horror team. I think that block and tackle werewolf is just again one of those characters that's going under the radar, and I think it's the key player in that team. So that's the one I'm going for. And I was going to go for my game against Jane as well, because it was probably the most intense game I've ever played of Blood Bowl. But I'd actually like to go with the other game that I watched that day, which is the Doombringers and the Circus. The way that turned around was quite spectacular. You saw the elves come out, and you thought it's going to be another definite win for the elves, and then Papa Nurgle had different ideas.
Cool, and I think I'd have a pretty good bet about what this answer is going to be. Scott, what was your game of the week? Who was your player of the week who deserves a bounty?
My player of the week was player of the season in my eyes. Really stepped up to the plate when I needed him to. 10 out of 10, no comments.
Okay, so that's your player of the week. Is the match of the week then going to be Harrison versus Carl? Orcs versus Orcs, the big uns versus Plague Brigade.
Yeah, selfishly, yeah, but I mean, Skaven holding it 1-0 for the majority of the game after their really rough start of the season. Harrison clawing it back and doing everything right until Nuffle was just like, nah, sod ya. And then Skaven capitalising and doing Skaven stuff. Like, it's great. Like, that is Blood Bowl. It's just, yeah, that's my match. Love it.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be, I have got to agree with you, it's going to be the Orcs versus Skaven, the big uns versus the Plague Brigade. It just shows everything that can happen in a match. You know, the underdog, not expecting it, can come around and snatch it away from the player who's in form as well. That's what we love about this game. That's where it all is. So we've got a few weeks left. Next week, we'll give you an update in terms of what to expect from the champions section of the draw versus the new conference. So a reminder to all those coaches who aren't in the top two, you've still got the opportunity to play and be the first champion of the new inaugural conference as well. So more on that in due course. A reminder to get your table and your games booked in as possible, please. And I think that's going to be about it for this evening. It's been an absolute privilege, despite the gremlins. Thank you for everybody. Thank you, Jane, for joining us this evening. Anything else you want to shout out? Any people? Is that what the kids do these days, Tom? Do they give shout outs to people? You're the voice of youth on the channel.
Am I? Okay. I assume so. Yes.
Jane, anyone you want to call out? Anything you want to mention?
No. Just thanks everyone for a fan. And I can't wait to do the playoffs and then get going again next season.
Mr. Norman, thank you again for your insight and your accompanying thoughts and words of wisdom. Anything you want to shout out? Any final departing words, nuggets to leave us with?
just go for it. Like, absolutely, just throw dice at things. Some of it will stick, and it's hilarious when it does.
Super. And last but by no means least, anything from you, Tom, to share with the audience?
No, just a reminder. I know we've said it many times, but last games have to be on the 4th of July to guarantee that they're going to be used within the season.
Cool. Thank you, Tom. Well, that's been it, everybody. Hopefully you've enjoyed that Monday night roundup. A reminder, NDP, New Dice Please podcast will be on later this week. We will be answering and doing the usual sort of stuff, Witcherins and Insane Rants, as always. Keep an eye out for that. Blood Bowl will be live again on A&DBBL on Twitch. You can find us on YouTube, all of those other great places as well. Happy gaming.